In this video, we're going to talk about electoral districts. In addition to the ballot, the next piece of electoral machinery we need to look at is the drawing of districts. Now, in many districts, we've got electoral competition between, let's say, a blue candidate, the Democrats, the red candidate, the Republicans, and sometimes, often, there is an even split of potential voters for each party. This would be considered a competitive district, where there are persuadable voters in the middle. Now, this is an example of Texas' 2nd Congressional District, one held in the past by Dan Crenshaw. Now, not all voters look like that. Not all districts look like this. In this particular district, you can see there are a lot more red voters than there are blue voters. And you can see the median voter is easily captured by the red candidate. This is sometimes called a red district, where there are a lot of Republican voters. An example might be the Wyoming at-large district, once held by Liz Cheney. Very easy for the Republicans to win this one. Now, conversely, some districts are heavily populated with Democratic voters, and the median voter would easily be accessible to the Democratic candidate. This type of district, a blue district, could be seen in a district like California 12th, Nancy Pelosi's district. Now, if you're a candidate, what type of district would you want to run in? Presumably, you'd want to win in one that had a lot of your supporters in it. And that poses a little problem. We have 435 electoral districts in America, and that is fixed because there are 435 seats in the House of Representatives. One thing that isn't fixed, however, is population. Population patterns change. And after every census, after every 10 years, these districts need to be redrawn because people move around. Some areas decline in population, other areas grow. The state legislatures draw the maps for these districts. So this is one thing that sets the United States apart from other countries, is that elected politicians draw the electoral districts. That is relatively uncommon. And what that leads to is a problem called gerrymandering. And this is a famous political cartoon from Elbridge Gerry. Famously drew his own district to make it easier for him to get elected. And the district had an odd shape like a salamander, hence the name gerrymandering. And so what that usually refers to is politicians drawing oddly shaped congressional districts to try and ensure that their party is more successful. This produces some strange looking districts. In a country like Canada, most of the districts are pretty compact and contained. Sometimes they follow traditional county or geographic boundaries. Something like this in Illinois' 4th Congressional District look bizarre, because you've got little cutouts of people that would be, living on the same city block but would be in a different congressional district. So there are different reasons for drawing these ones, and they look kind of ridiculous. This one was actually a court-ordered district. The court ordered it to draw this district so it could create a majority Hispanic district. And what it did was it actually kind of took a Mexican neighborhood and a Puerto Rican neighborhood and found a way to draw them together. And so are these necessarily communities of interest, or do these people have the same neighborhood interest? Potentially not. And that is sometimes what happens in gerrymandering. Now, here's the rationale behind it. Voters live in different proportions in different areas. So let's say in this area, in this region, we've got 50 precincts, 50 little areas, and overall the population is 60% blue and 40% red. How do you draw 5 districts with 10 people in each district? You could just take a straight linear format and draw the map up. However, this would not necessarily be fair, because you would end up with every single election 5 blue seats and 0 red seats, despite red voters being 40% of the population. This would not be completely fair. So how else could you do it? Well, you could even go so far as to try and draw 3 red districts and 2 blue districts. In this type of election, red would win a majority of the seats, even though they only have 40% of the population. How would they do this? Well, they drew oddly shaped districts, for one, and notice how the blue voters were concentrated. They were packed into 2 districts. What this did was minimize their influence in the region as a whole by putting them all in one place. That allowed for 3 red districts to be drawn. This is how gerrymandering works. It is often done to reduce influence. Here is a pattern of districts in the Austin, Texas area over a period of several redrawings of districts. They had a weird mid-decade redistricting in Texas. So in the first one, 2003, you can see that Austin, Texas is actually divided up into 3 districts. In the next redistricting cycle, they cut another piece off into a different one. So the city is drawn up in 4 districts, presumably to dilute the influence of the people living there. Fast forward to the 2015 cycle, you've got another district. So you've taken one city that could be conceivably its own district, and they've sliced it up like a pie into 5 and 6 different congressional districts to try and reduce the influence of the voters there to spread them out. Here was the 2020 map of Texas. You can see the same dynamic where Austin, Texas, a little slice of it has been drawn around to San Antonio as well to pack Democratic voters in those areas. What this map has, you can see by the bar at the top of the screen there, 11 safe Republican districts, 8 safe Democratic districts, 5 districts that could lean slightly that way, and then 12 competitive districts in the middle. Now, politicians don't like running in competitive districts. And at the 2022 redistricting cycle, this was one of the proposed maps by the Texas leadership. Again, Texas controlled by Republicans. Their new map would create 22 safe seats. Now that's a lot better for them. It would create 12 safe Democratic seats. Now that's up from 8. From 8 Democratic seats all the way up to 12. Why would they do that? Well, they've reduced the number of competitive seats down to 1, essentially. And that's when you think about the self-interest of politicians, they want to run in a district where they can get reelected safely without having to compete for votes. So why do politicians do this? Well, the motivating factors, there's several. The first one is typically incumbent protection. People that are in office want to redraw their districts to ensure that they can win again and stay in office. There's also partisan gerrymandering and racial gerrymandering to try and dilute influence of, let's say, black voters or a particular party. And those are often used as proxies for one another. Cracking refers to breaking up communities of interest to try and dilute their influence, and packing means putting them all into one spot so they'll be less competitive overall. Both of these strategies can dilute influence.